Hey guys, it's Will, Vinyl Appreciation Society. This is part 2 of my 3-part albums of the Decade video series. These are becoming a little bit unruly. The first one was like a half hour long, so I'm going to try to keep this one shorter. I'm not going to take as many records out of their sleeves, and I'm just going to try to blow through, and you don't need to hear me go on and on and on about every record because I will put a link in the description to a playlist where you can go and hear all these albums. So I'm going to start with Crowhurst. Crowhurst is an album, or a band that I listened to a ton this decade, and Crowhurst is actually two different kind of things. It's a solo project that, well, it's like solo, but it's tons of collaboration, if that makes sense. So it's that what the guy who behind Crowhurst does is he records all of this stuff from all these different musicians, and then he makes like noise and drone records using all of this material. And so he's like the orchestrator, but also plays like a lot of this stuff himself. So for Crowhurst, like noise and instrumental records, I have Everyone Is Guilty. I love this record. This is one of my favorite of their noise records. Here we have Grim, and I know this is Vinyl Appreciation Society. These are cassettes. What are you going to do? This is live. Total collapse. And this is just chaotic, brutal noise. And I think, I might be wrong, but I think I was at one of the shows where this was recorded. Because these were all recorded in LA, but I don't remember exactly. And then, because I've seen Crowhurst, I think 3 or 4 times, and he's since moved to Philadelphia, but he was based in LA for a while, so I met him as well. It's a nice dude. And then what do we have here? This is Speedboat Over the Sea, I think, is the name of this. But this has like some crazy shit on it. Like there's a 25-minute song on here with like saxophones and stuff, right? Am I remembering this record correctly? Yeah, there's a 23-minute song on here. There's two 23-minute songs on here. I stand corrected, and I think one of them has like some kind of horn on it, but just crazy music. And then on vinyl for Crowhurst noise stuff, noise/drone, I also have a Gorhey, which is at home. I just didn't bring it in because I had too many records, honestly, to bring into the studio today, and so I just left that one at home. But I think this is his personal favorite of his like noise/drone records. And this is on, I think, Ivory Antler Records, and I don't know if this is still the case, but excuse me, I think I got this for $5. So this is like dirt cheap, and this is a really good album if you like noise and drone type music. And I think one of the members of Face Down and Shit is on this record. If you don't know Face Down and Shit, yeah, they put out a record called Nothing Positive, Only Negative. That's kind of like I Hate God type like worship. Oh man, that album is good as hell. So there you go. That's a little bit of Crowhurst for you. And then I also have, these are, I have 2 test pressings of the first. So Crowhurst is also a metal band. So the guy who does the noise/drone project is also the leader of a metal band and the only sole consistent member. And they have 3 records, 1, 2, and 3. And I have the first 2. I wasn't able to get the third one because I didn't have any money when it went up for pre-order. And it has since sold out, so I don't have a copy of it. Hopefully I'll be able to snag it on Discogs at some point. I have 2 test press records of the test press copies of Crowhurst 1, and I found out not too long ago from Crowhurst himself that a lot of those were destroyed in a flood or like through bad storage. So I thought that I had 2 of the 50, and there were 48 elsewhere in the world, but apparently there are far fewer copies in the world, so that's kind of cool. This is their first record. So this is kind of weird because this is black and white. And Crowhurst 1 this is the same record as that test pressing. I've only ever seen color album covers of this. Like, he showed me his personal copy, and it was color. And I've seen this at Amoeba, and it was color. I've seen it online, and it was color. I don't know how the hell I got this black and white copy. I don't know if there are multiple black and white copies. But, so there you go. And then this is Crowhurst 2. And there's a variant of this that's black with white splatter, which was what I ordered, but when the record label got the records in, they were not labeled. And so they just had to guess which was the variant and which was not, and I ended up with just the straight black version. And they offered to send me a splatter, like the black and white splatter version to make up for it, but I was like, I'm not going to rob you of like this small label that only had like, you know, a finite number of copies of this record. So I felt like a dick being like, yeah, you got to send it to me. I'm going to, rob you of your inventory. So so this is what I ended up with. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's about the music, not the variant, right? But this is a really great record. So the Crowhurst metal band is kind of like Doom, like blackened Doom is the best way to describe it. But there you go. Here I have Converge. This is just the standard black variant of The Dusk in Us, which is, as of now, their most recent record. And this album got me back into Converge. I really didn't like All We Love, We Leave Behind. Well, I shouldn't say I didn't like it. It doesn't stand out to me at all Jane Doe, and then You Fail Me, and then No Heroes, and then Axe to Fall are 4 of the absolute best metalcore records ever made for me. I'm a huge Converge fan. And when All We Love We Leave Behind came out, I was like, oh, this just sounds like Converge being Converge. Like, it sounds like Paint by Numbers Converge. It did nothing for me, and I honestly kind of like got out of listening to Converge. And then that new record came out, and it blew me away, and I love it to death, and I went and saw them when they toured with Neurosis. So I'm happy to be a Converge fan again. Mastodon, hell yeah. I'm a huge Mastodon fan. I have a Mastodon shirt that I wear a lot in these videos, so you might know that. I've seen them a couple times. I just love their sound. This is Emperor of Sand. I really like this record, and I know that there are people who don't. I'm just getting some dog hair out of here. This is just a standard black variant. I know that there are people who don't like this record. I really, really like this album. I also really liked Once More Around the Sun and The Hunter, which also came out this decade. So for me, those 3 Mastodon records are all like top of the decade heavy records, and I listen to them a butt ton. But again, like I said, I am a huge Mastodon fan. Bane. Bane is my favorite hardcore band. Sometimes it's Sick of It All. Most of the time it's Bane. This is their final record. They decided to have one last hurrah and do like an epic years-long world tour and then call it quits. And this album is every single thing you would want if you knew that one of your favorite bands was calling it quits and putting out a final record. Like, Give Blood is like one of those albums in my life that I will always love and cherish to death. But if I'm really being honest with myself and speaking objectively and comparing them track by track, I think this record is just as strong. And I think this is a phenomenal, phenomenal hardcore record. I listened to it so many times when it came out. I saw Bane 3 times touring this record, if I remember correctly. And I think I saw them 6 times altogether, so I saw them 3 and 3 before and after that record. So that's Don't Wait Up, and that's like a top probably. So that actually would have been in my top dozen albums of the decade, which is another list I'm doing. Were it not for the fact that I told myself I wouldn't put any really heavy stuff in there because I'm doing these playlists for people to listen to, and I know that if you're listening to indie rock and whatever, and then Bane comes on, you're going to very quickly navigate away, and I want people to have like a fun experience kind of going through these. So what do we have next? Harm's Way. I've got, I think except for the remaster EP they put out, I've got all the albums they put out this decade here. So this is, I'm like kind of looking at the order here and what I have these in. This is Isolation. I forgot the name of this record for a minute. So Harm's Way, if you don't know, is a band that they're described as like a hardcore band / metalcore band. I think they think of themselves as a hardcore band because they came from the hardcore scene, but to me they're very much a metal band. And especially after their like early power violence stuff. And so this record to me really sounds like a band that came up through hardcore and metalcore discovering Entombed. This has freaking incredible like Swedish style death metal riffs on it, but it is very much like of that chugging kind of beat down metalcore genre. This is a really fantastic record. I think a lot of people would point to that as their favorite Harm's Way record. And then this is just an EP they put out that's pretty interesting because it has like one song called, I think, Mind Control, that's just like straight up death metal. Like if you didn't see the video and you didn't know about this band, you heard that, you'd be like, oh cool, Swedish death metal. But then it has like some industrial influence too, and some like really out of field elements that you wouldn't expect to hear. And then that came fully to fruition on Rust. We've already done a video on this, so I don't need to take this out. This is the rust colored variant of this record, so it's kind of like brown looking, and this is like beat down kind of hardcore with some, I hear some Helmet influence on this record with like the kind of down-tuned staccato riffing, and then the industrial elements, like the kind of Godflesh influence. And this is a really, really fantastic record. And I had to listen a lot to all of the Harm's Way records in the lead up. I really love this band. Like, I really love this band. And I think they're super underrated because a lot of their peers, this is a really cool variant. I'm just going to pop this out real quick. A lot of their peers are really highly regarded and are receiving a lot of mainstream attention. Like, Code Orange was nominated for a Grammy. And this is like Oxblood Red with Silver, I think is the variant here. And Vane and Jesus Piece are receiving mainstream attention. Turnstile was on the... I know that Turnstile is more just like straight up hardcore on the cover of Spin. And I think that Harm's Way is head and shoulders above all those bands. I'm not trying to create competition. I know they're friends with those bands. I don't want to like bash those bands because they all just do what they do. And it just so happens that one band gets more attention than the other. But, well, like in Code Orange's case, Code Orange is really, really, really good at hyping themselves. So like their own publicity machine. And I don't say that in a negative way. That's like a really standout talent that they have. But Harm's Way, to me, in terms of what I like in music and their songwriting, is head and shoulders above those bands, and it's it's interesting to me that they don't receive the same kind of attention. And then here we have their most recent record, Posthuman. This is like the purple highlighter variant or something like that, or like purple marble. I've done a couple videos on this, so I don't really need to pop this out and show it to you, but this is like the death metal influence and the industrial influence and the hardcore and the metalcore and the beatdown stuff all coming together completely cohesively on one record. Really, really, really solid album. All of my records that I have over here in my pile are completely collapsing. No, don't do it! Don't fall down heavy. They're collapsing under the weight of the heaviness of their own riffs. I'm going to mention Hatebreed while I'm sorting out this catastrophe with the records over here. I have Hatebreed, I think, if I remember correctly, they put out 2 records this decade. One is called Concrete Confessional, and one is called The Divinity of Purpose. And both of those are among my favorite heavy records of this decade. I'm a huge Hatebreed fan, unapologetically so. I don't care if people think that they're corny or if they don't like Jamie Josta. Fuck those people. Concrete Confessional has some of the absolute best lyrics I have heard this entire decade. Like, Jamie Josta's absolute fucking fury with the shithole state of the world as manifest on that record is one of the most amazing things you will ever hear. That album came out when I was like at a pretty low point in my life, especially professionally, and the fucking fury and the rage and the loathing on that record for the shit state of the world so perfectly encapsulates what it's like to be in that state of mind and frame of mind that record was like a really great companion for me in that time. A couple other things I don't have physical copies of that I want to mention. The Drip put out a really great record that's kind of like death grind. Highly recommended. I think it's on Relapse, but I don't honestly remember. Don't quote me on that. Rotting Christ I've been listening to a lot recently. The Heretics and Rituals, especially 2 really strong records that I think both came out this decade, I'm pretty sure. Maybe Ritual came out last decade, but Heretics came out this year. So the Candlemass record, in which they reunited with their original vocalist from Epicus Doomicus Metallicus, or Doomicus Epicus, the name of the record they always butcher, that happens to be like my favorite Doom album ever, and I can never freaking remember the name of the album because it's like fake Latin. But anyway, they reunited with the vocalist from that record, and that album is freaking incredible, and I highly recommend that. I've been listening to that a lot. And then Crypt Sermon, which is a band that kind of sounds like old school Candlemass, but also like an Iron Maiden influence in there too. Their record just came out this year, and I've been listening to that a ton. I'm just looking at if there's anything. And then Cataclysm. I'm a huge Cataclysm fan. They're one of my probably 5 favorite death metal bands. And Meditations came out, I think, last year, 2018, and that album is super strong, really groovy, like heavy death metal, and they put out, I think, like maybe 2 or 3 other records this decade that were all like really strong. So then my final pile of records here, I think there's just like, and I have to mention actually what might be my single favorite heavy record of this decade, which I only have on CD, and I couldn't find it because my CDs are all in disarray right now, is The Satanist by Behemoth. I can't say enough good things about this record. I know that people like to rag on Nergal and how big Behemoth has become, but that record is so freaking incredible. It's so unique. It's so original. The songwriting is so strong. The performances are so strong. The way it's recorded and mixed is just, it's out of this world. The lyrics are really incredible. The packaging of the album, like the whole presentation of it is just like, that's probably my favorite blackened death metal record ever. I really like blackened death metal. So Behemoth, Belphegor, Necrophobic, like all that stuff. And that is probably my favorite blackened death metal record, like, of all time. I listened to it so many times this past decade. So I have to give a shout out to that. And actually, I also have the Code Error tape right here. This is members of Tools of the Trade and Wormrot. So this is an Indonesian or Singaporean, right, / Malaysian, if I'm getting that correct. I hope I'm not being an ass and completely getting wrong everything about this band, but I think the 2 members of Wormrot that are in this are based in Singapore, and then there's 2 members of the band based in Malaysia. This is just a really great cassette. It's just really furious grindcore. So, to get into my final little pile here, I have Call of the Void. I've done several videos before on these Call of the Void records, so I'm not going to, like, go crazy pulling them all out and talking about them, but Call of the Void is a band that's kind of like combines grindcore, crust punk, death metal, all these really heavy influences there. Absolutely one of my favorite heavy bands of this last decade, and they just called it quits, so that's kind of sad and kind of a bummer, but I really love this band. So here's their first record, and this is called, what is it called? Remember, drag down a dead-end path. This is just really heavy, dirty, low-end, like grindy hardcore. And then their songwriting evolved exponentially for Ageless, which is their second record, which I absolutely love. I listened to this album like a million times. It's so great. I can't recommend that highly enough. This is the silver, like Relapse 25th anniversary variant. And then we have here Are You Fucking Kidding Me, which is an EP that came out in, I think, 2016. This is the blue. No, this is the purple. This is the purple variant with an etching on the B side. And like I said, all of that is in other videos that we've done, so I'll include links to other stuff so you can go and check that out if you want to. And then Buried in Light, I have somewhere, I'm looking over here because I have that record in the studio because I was just looking at it and I just didn't throw it in this pile. I think it's over there by one of those computers. But that's my favorite Call of the Void record, and I have two variants of that, and it's just astounding. So go check that out. So the last couple things here, Sumac. Sumac has been, along with Call of the Void, probably my favorite new heavy band of this decade. This is Love and Shadow, which is their most recent record, and this is like the pink with black, I think black streaks variants. And so Sumac is like epic avant-garde doom. Like, I don't even know what you call them. They're like a power trio. They write songs that are like probably 8 to like 20 minutes long. They have like really quiet parts. They have super heavy, massive, sludgy riffs. Really heavy, almost like death metal-y vocals, and it's Aaron Turner, who is in ISIS and Old Man Gloom, and then Nicky Asashin, who's in Baptist, and then Brian Cook, who is in Botch, and then Russian Circles, and so that will give you some indication of what it sounds like, but they're just incredible, and I love them, and they've put out 3 records in like maybe 3 or 4 years, of their own, and then they have 2 collaborative records. They've put out 5 things since they started, and then they're already recording, or maybe they've even finished recording their next full length as a band. So they're just like they're just like steamrolling the universe. This is one of their collaborations with Keiji Haino. They've put out 2 of them. This is American Dollar Bill, Keep Facing Sideways, You're Too Hideous to Look At Face On. This is the studio collaboration that they did. There's also a live collaboration that they did that we did an unboxing of very, very recently, so I didn't bring that in because it should be fresh in your mind. Temple of Void, Lords of Death. This album is freaking mind-blowing. So our friend Logan, who you've probably seen in our videos before, really likes this album as well, and we talk about it a ton. This is absolutely the most underrated death metal, death doom, whatever you want to call it, record of the past 10 years. This album is freaking incredible. It's like if you took like Cannibal Corpse or like some other just like really heavy, nasty death metal, Obituary, like that kind of stuff. I hear a little bit of Bolt Thrower influence in here, which is super awesome for me because I am a freaking huge Bolt Thrower fan. They're like top 5 death metal bands for me. And then you just slowed it the fuck down. And it's just like this like wading through a swamp death metal, crushing you with the weight of a million anvils, like a giant freaking troll come out of history to rip your body limb from limb. I can't say enough good things about this record. It is called Lords of Death. It is by Temple of the Void, or Temple of Void. There's no "the" in there. Temple of Void. And Shadow Kingdom Records. And I think they put out 2 records this decade. And the other one is also very, very good, but I prefer this one. And then I think they just finished recording their follow-up to that, so that'll hopefully be out in 2020. So that's something to look forward to in this new decade. And finally, this is the metal album that I have listened to the most this decade, and I know that because on my iTunes it's one of like the top 3 most highly played records. I've listened to it hundreds of times. It's the album that actually got me into grindcore. I didn't get into grindcore until I was in my 30s. It just never appealed to me, and I heard that this is Wormrot. Let's bust it out. Wormrot, Voices. I heard this record, and it was like a light went on in my head, and I was like, oh, I get what grindcore is. It's this, and this is the best freaking thing of all time. This record is so goddamn good, I don't even know what to say about it. It's just like pure, unmitigated savagery for like 30 minutes. There's like 20 songs on here. And this album kind of reminds me of Jane Doe by Converge. In the first 2 tracks, especially like the pacing of them and the way that they're arranged and recorded sounds a lot like Jane Doe. But it's not like a ripoff. But like I can hear some kind of like Converge influence on here. But this definitely is. This is really cool. This is like a signed insert by the band. The drummer on this album is like, how is he a human being? Like he's playing at a pace that you would think that only a machine could play. It's insane. Like the precision and the speed and the heaviness with which he plays is just mind-blowing. And the vocals are, the guitar player of this band, who I think probably writes all the music, and has a really interesting, like, unique sound. He'll play like a lot of these like kind of like repetitive open chords, and then bust into these like super heavy low end riffs. And so it's like it's just a really cool like method of songwriting that he has. Is very unique to me. Not having heard a ton of grindcore, but now I've listened to a fair amount of it since I got into this band. Still sounds pretty unique to me. And he described the vocalist as a savant, and he's like, he just goes into the vocal booth and like he'll sing a song that has screeching, growling, like shouting, all these different styles in it, and he doesn't do multiple takes. He doesn't stop here, I'm now going to do the growling part. Like, it's just like mind blowing. If you don't like grindcore, you're not going to like this album probably, although it did change my mind on grindcore. It is called Voices. It is by Wormrot, and then this along with Behemoth, as I said, the Satanist, are my favorite heavy metal record. Heavy metal, woo! Who's going to Van Halen this Saturday? Yeah, brother! My favorite heavy records of the decade. My name is Will. This is Vinyl Appreciation Society. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back with one more of these videos that will be my top 12 records of the decade, accepting heavy music, like I said. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're still here. Let us know what your favorite heavy records of the past decade have been, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.